Canadian-born Coleen Marenich began her CRV training with Lyn Buchanan in 2001 and took the next 3 years to proceed all the way through to the advanced level, becoming the first Canadian civilian to achieve that level training from Lyn Buchanan. Coleen was chosen to become the Canadian CRV Training Facilitator for Lyn Buchanan, a role she enjoyed for 7 years, at which time she also became a mentor to many of his students. In 2004, Lyn Buchanan trained Coleen for the CRV Project Manager position in his company. Later on, Coleen held the position of project manager with her own CRV project team. At Lyn Buchanan's request in 2005, Coleen created a one-of-a-kind online CRV training program for advanced level CRVers to help them transition from being practice CRVers to becoming highly effective CRV project team members. Coleen has held the position of program manager and trainer while the program has become increasingly sought after. In 2007, Coleen created Troubleshooting Workshops for CRVer, and in 2009 gave a conference presentation with Lyn Buchanan at I.R.V.A, International Remote Viewing Association, to outline their new standard for training project viewers and to showcase the level of CRV talent they were working with on their projects. Over the years, Coleen authored magazine articles covering everything from introduction to CRV to detailing her CRV training methods and programs to a two-part article entitled Ethics in CRV in Dad Smith's Eight Martini magazine. Coleen has also had a role of editor of Eight Martinis for many years. When Coleen created her own CRV Basic, Intermediate and Advanced training and mentoring courses, instead of holding 3-day workshops, Coleen created programs for the next generation of CRVers that could be offered entirely online in one-on-one private training lessons with a focus on the ethical practice of remote viewing. Using online conferencing technology, today Coleen Marenich teaches and mentors CRV students living all over the planet, some from as far away as Australia, Iceland and Europe, the US, and many in our home country of Canada. Welcome to my new podcast, Coleen.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Can you please explain to our listeners what exactly CRV is about?
Well, CRV, controlled remote viewing, is a step-by-step process that once you learn how to do the steps, you actually open a door to your subconscious in order to receive perceptions from a target site that is not in your presence. It was a method taught to the members of a secret U.S. military unit who operated for over 20 years. And they were taught how to use this for intelligence purposes, to get information from all over the planet, but typically for intelligence purposes, they needed to get information with respect to the U.S. non-allies. Once the unit was disbanded and they had all these incredibly highly trained controlled remote viewers out in the civilian world, many of them started training civilians. And I was lucky enough to take Lyn Buchanan's training and learn the step-by-step method from Lyn on how to receive information from target sites. Non-local awareness was what it was called by the scientists. But it's an easy process for people to learn. It's you do it in a wide awake state. You're not meditating. You're not in an altered state. You can do it with pen and paper. It's a process that they needed to They needed to create a step-by-step method that could be taught to the common grunt soldier originally in the secret U.S. military unit, so that any soldier in the field could be trained how to do this and could do it effectively in any situation. So that's a brief introduction to what CRV is.
Thank you. And what is the difference between controlled remote viewing and the remote viewing we hear a lot of in the internet?
Right. When the U.S. unit was disbanded, and the U.S. media found out about what they had been doing for 20 years, in their reports about what they did, what the unit members did, they used the term remote viewing. And soon, natural psychics who were doing psychic work of all kinds, psychic, medium, tarot cards, all that kind of work, heard what the definition of remote viewing was from the media, and realized that they were practicing something very similar in the way they did their psychic art, and started to call themselves remote viewers. So remote viewing today, if somebody comes to you and says, I'm a remote viewer, you can ask them, are you a controlled remote viewer? Or are you a remote viewer? People who are practicing the psychic arts typically call themselves these days remote viewers.
And how did you learn about controlled remote viewing?
Oh, I just, when all the stars align and you suddenly get a message and you realize that this is what you've been searching for, or this is the answer to a question you've been looking for years. To go back a little bit, when I was a teenager, I had an awareness of things that I realized other people didn't. And I lived in a small town, and small town library, small time school library. I wanted to develop or learn, at least learn, about what I was perceiving. What was I aware of? Why was I aware of these things? And the books that I found in these libraries that I went to in my hometown were all about witchcraft, occult, Satan worship. I knew that this was none of that. I knew this was none of that. But I've always, as I grew into my, to be a young adult, I wanted to find a way to either learn more about this and explore it, or perfect it in some way. I just happened to be listening to a radio interview of I.R.V.A, one of my favorite radio interviewers. This was way back in the 90s, late 90s. He was interviewing a fella named David Morehouse, and David Morehouse had written a book called Psychic Warrior. I thought, what an interesting book title. How can anybody be a psychic warrior? What's this about? And it turns out that David Morehouse was a member of that secret U.S. military unit, and it had disbanded. And after it had disbanded, David wrote a book about his experience in the unit. And at one point, I.R.V.A said, David, do you mean that anyone can learn how to do this thing called controlled remote viewing? And David said, yes, it's a step-by-step method that anybody can learn. That was it. I'm running around the room writing down the name of the book and run to the bookstore the next day to get the book. I read it cover to cover. I was hooked. That was it. Yeah. I knew that this controlled remote viewing was going to help me, one, understand my own ability, and two, it was going to help me develop it. Yep. And it was going to be a really cool process for me to learn, and I knew I could do it. I just knew I could do it.
Yep, great. Yeah. So you didn't find it to be difficult?
Well, what's interesting is when I was looking for a trainer, I found that there was different people that were offering me remote viewing training, not knowing the difference between controlled remote viewing and remote viewing. the Monroe Institute, for example, long-standing, very highly regarded Monroe Institute. They were offering a remote viewing course, but you were in a meditative state.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you came out of your meditative state, then you would quickly write down what you perceived in your meditative state. I knew that I wanted to learn how to do something that I could do anywhere, wide awake. So that's why I knew that controlled remote viewing would be the right pick for me.
Yep.
And when I went to my first basic class, and it was a workshop style, so 3 or 4 days, I can't remember if it was 3 or 4, but it was a weekend, and learned the basic step-by-step process from Lyn Buchanan. And there was so much that I had to learn and understand and perceive and do in the workshop, do my own session work. By the time I got on the plane to come home, I'm sure I couldn't even spell my name anymore. It was such an intense weekend. And there was so much that I was trying to understand. I got off the plane in Calgary and my husband just looked at me like, "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm not sure if I'm okay." Like that was a
big change.
huge change in my life that weekend. Huge change in my life.
Nice.
I had opened that door
Yep.
in my basic class on purpose and in a very controlled manner using this step-by-step process. It was a pivot point, I say. I had life before CRV and I had my life after CRV. It was forever changed after that weekend. Yeah.
Do you agree that this is a martial art of the mind?
I've often heard people say that, and it's funny, I've met an awful lot of CRV practitioners who are in the martial arts, and they say that there is a similar aspect to it in that you need to be focused, you need to have control, you need to have dedication and commitment, and you must practice over and over and over and over and over and over and over until it just comes naturally to you. So I can understand why people would say that it's a martial art of the mind. Very, has similar traits.
What are the applications of controlled remote viewing today?
Today, you can do CRV, and you know this, Danilo, from the work that you've done on different targets that you can just pick. Now that you are a postgrad and a project viewer, you can pick a target yourself and work on it and get all kinds of detailed information on it. So the other applications are medical, archaeological. You can work for police agencies looking for missing persons or helping them solve crime. The list goes on and on. There's a lot of applications to this. Business-wise, you can help people determine what is the best route for them to go, either go this path or this path or this path. You can help them in a CRV session. You can help determine which one will be the most beneficial. There's just no end to it because it's such a powerful tool that can be used to get all kinds of information, past, present, and to a limited extent, the future. You can do work in just about any aspect. That's what makes it so cool. There's no limit to it.
Can really anyone learn it?
I would say yes, and the people who would probably have the most difficulty incorporating the step-by-step process would probably be people who have a belief, a very, very strong, perhaps religious belief, that the step-by-step process, trust me, is very effective. Anybody can learn it. Anybody can learn how to do this. But I've actually seen some students, while they're learning the step-by-step process, completely freeze up. And they cannot complete the process in order to continue to learn.
Okay.
And it's something inside them
Mm-hmm.
that is not allowing them
It's
to
their
experience
belief system.
their belief system,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it could be something to do with their own understanding of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It might be too scary for some people to embark on this journey. It's a journey, trust me. The step-by-step process, when you learn to open this door, it's life-changing.
Yep, I agree.
That's the
Yep.
best way I can say it. And some people aren't ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, the step-by-step process is very simple to learn, very
Mm-hmm.
easy for anyone to learn. Yeah.
Yep. Are there common problems among your students when learning CRV?
There are, and you can call them problems, or you can just call them, what are the typical things that we struggle with as a controlled remote viewer? The step-by-step process opens that
Mm-hmm.
door, as I mentioned, but also your analytical mind, as perceptions start coming through from a target site, your analytical mind is aware of them because you're writing them down on paper. And your analytical mind is always trying to figure out what the target is from the perceptions that you're receiving. So the one struggle that all of us have in CRV, because we have such a strong analytical mind, is that your analytical mind will always try to jump in. Oh, I know what it is. Oh, that's a beach scene. Oh, I know what this is, all the way through your session. It's a really annoying process to acknowledge this. Okay, I understand. You think this is a beach scene. We will write that down over here. You think it's a beach scene. But that's the biggest struggle of any CRVer going through their training and becoming really good at what they do, is getting this analytical mind, stopping it from interfering
Mm-hmm.
with your session work.
And
Yeah, and
how is it possible to overcome this struggle?
there's techniques that you can learn, how to incorporate the information that the analytical mind is constantly bombarding you with in a session. In some instances, there's some strategies and some techniques and some troubleshooting that you can do on your own work, to recognize when it's about to happen, and
Mm-hmm.
recognize what's happening right there. What's going on right here that is allowing this analytical process to begin in your session work. So it's an awareness, a recognizing when it's about to happen, and trying to make it not happen, or recognize that, okay, this is what's going to happen now. The analytical mind is going to jump in here and tell me it's a beach scene, and just dealing with it by putting
Yep.
the information, declaring it, recognizing it, giving it the attention it wants, and then getting back into your session. It's something that happens with every viewer.
Yep.
Every viewer, yeah.
How do you measure the capabilities of your students?
In several different ways. Because of the way that I train students, I watch to see what their natural strength is. And the interesting thing that I learned in my own training is I have a natural strength in colors and shapes.
Mm-hmm.
If there's colors at the target, and most of them are, and if there's a specific shape and patterns, if there's anything that has a pattern in it, I'm all over that in a session. It comes to me very easily. Other students, they have a natural talent in getting other types of perceptions from a
Mm-hmm.
target. Every one of us who comes into CRV has a natural strength. And so I help them with that, is by giving them targets that they can do practice work on that may have lots of patterns in it or lots of colors in it. Because if you can get good in one way, in one perception, you can actually get other types of perceptions that relate to it. So I can help a viewer become better at what they're already good at in order to get even better with getting other perceptions. And the way I measure the capabilities of a student is to see what they get, see what they don't get, see
Mm-hmm.
what they're missing completely. Some students miss things completely, constantly. and seeing how we can get that information to come through in using some techniques and strategies. But how I measure it is there's a database that Lyn Buchanan's wife, created for all the students of Lyn Buchanan. And you score your summary, your session summary, against about 30 different categories of perceptions. You know, color, shapes, patterns, orientation, composition, ambiance, you name it. You score your session summary on that chart, and then you upload it into Linda's database. And after you load several sessions into that database, a viewer profile starts to appear.
Mm-hmm.
You press a
Yep.
button and it shows you what your natural tendencies are, what things that you get naturally really good at. And you can use that as a method to help you get better in the future. So that's the method I use.
Yep.
Absolutely, with every session every student that I teach.
Did you have students with special psychic abilities, such as what is called natural psychic?
Right. And quite often, people who are in the natural psychic realm will find controlled remote viewing to be an interest to them. And when they come to me and I train them in controlled remote viewing, there's a couple of things that happen. They are very comfortable and are very capable in getting non-local perceptions on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And when they come to CRV, I ask them, why are you coming here? You already have an ability and you've mastered it. Why are you coming to controlled remote viewing now? Because they want the control measures.
Mm-hmm.
They want to know how to cue their subconscious to get information on demand. They want more control of the information that's coming through instead of just being bombarded by information. They learn through CRV how to get specific information that they want to get when they want it. They want their subconscious to give it to them in a specific way. That's what you learn in controlled remote viewing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what is the difference between teaching to a natural psychic compared to someone who isn't aware of having psychic abilities?
That's a really good question, Danilo. There are people who come to me who've never, ever had a psychic ability at all. I was one of them. I went into basic class, a psychic as a doorknob. I said to people, I knew that I was aware of things, but I didn't classify myself as a psychic. And so when students come to me who are natural psychics, there's things that I can teach them because they're already aware and they already have a process of how to get information. So I'm just kind of adding some more tools to their toolbox on how to get better and more detailed information through CRV. So when somebody comes to me and they were like me when I came to basic class, it's a whole new awareness for them. They've never had this ability, this awareness. They've never had this door open on purpose, right? We've all had hunches, inclinations, and intuitive messages that have come to us over the years. And most likely, like me, and I'm sure a lot of other people, we dismiss them. Oh, that's just a coincidence. Oh, that's not really important. Oh, it's just I don't know why I'm getting that message. But what's been happening all that time is your subconscious has been trying to pass messages to you, um, and most of the time you've been ignoring them. But now you're opening a door and letting that information come through. And for somebody who's never had any psychic work or an awareness before, I get goosebumps just thinking about my first experience. It's amazing. That's all I can tell you. When you're done your first session and you look at the paper and you see what you've written down, and then they show you the feedback photo that goes with it, and you realize that everything you've written down you can see on this feedback photo, it's astounding. It's really, really something else. Yeah.
What has teaching given you more than studying the CRV method?
The teaching, I was involved in CRV very heavily for about 10 years, and then I took a break. And then after about 5 years of taking a break, I started to get the itch, the CRV itch. Again, and I thought, oh goodness, I've always loved CRV, and the years that I was away from it, all I could think about was CRV, 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 and my friends and the colleagues and the fellow students that I went through training with. And so I sat down with my husband and said, I think I want to get back into this. And he said, asked me one question. Instead of doing everything like you used to, what do you think going forward you'd have the most fun doing? What would be the most fulfilling for you? I said, teaching. Absolutely, teaching. And so there's something about teaching, Danilo. When I see the look, the expression on a student's face when they're doing their first CRV session, and they have this, oh my God moment, and I'm actually there witnessing that, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. It's the most amazing experience for both the student and for me, that I've helped them learn something in their life that is an aha moment that it like no other. There's nothing that compares to this. So in the past, I just love training because of that. When other students come to me and they've been through other trainers, or they're at a level of training that they want to get better and they want to get really good at what they do, I look at their work, I study their work, and together we work on a different way to approach getting information so they get more detail and and they become more effective viewers. And just doing that, it's a challenge for some of them. It's a real challenge, but you know what? When they roll up their sleeves and get down to it and they learn how to become a better viewer, there's just nothing better. it's amazing. It's really good stuff. I was really heavily involved with Lyn Buchanan, being a project manager with him, being a course coordinator in Canada for him for 9 years. All of that was great stuff. When I was involved in that, it was amazing stuff. I could not get enough of that work. I also had a full-time job, but I also did this on the side. All of it was wonderful, wonderful experience. And now that I've resumed and I'm concentrating on just training, that's there's nothing that compares to this.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Are there ethical questions in controlled remote viewing?
Yeah, there are. That's a really good question. I have fashioned my training. I have arranged my training to address this. Because CRV is very powerful. It is extremely effective. As a practitioner, you can view and perceive anything. Anything. So with that ability comes a huge responsibility to practice this with very high ethical standards. Just because you can view anything, there are certain targets, people, events, locations you should not view. You just should not. It's highly unethical.
Mm-hmm.
When I have a student come to me for training, I vet them. I have conversations with them. Even before I sign them up for training, I ask them one question, every student. One of the questions I ask is, what do you want to do this for? Why do you want to do this? Do you realize how effective and powerful this is? If you do, what do you want to use it for? And if they say, I'm wanting to get into this to help others, I sign them up. If I get any sense that a student is trying to tell me that they want to use this to get an advantage,
Mm-hmm.
to use this to get an advantage over someone or something, to use this for personal gain or to use this to harm someone that they want to get back at, that's the end of the conversation. I have no time for people who want to come and learn something this powerful to use it for that purpose. There's a high ethical responsibility as a CRV practitioner. You know this, Danilo. You know what kind of information you can get, right?
Yeah.
It's very, very personal and highly detailed information you can get about an event, a location, a person, right?
Yeah.
You need to be highly ethical in your practice of this.
I think the same can be applied to clients.
Yes, right, right. If some client comes to you, oh, can you do this for me? I want to find out what my competitor is doing over there in his business, so I can get a jump on what he's doing, and I can do what he's doing instead of him, or faster than him, or I can find a way to ruin his business. There's no way. No. Back up, buddy. Go somewhere else. I am not going to work with you if that's your intention. Forget that. Forget it. Yeah.
And did you have contact to unethical people when you was looking to a trainer?
I ran into a couple of them, actually, because I was naive. I didn't understand the difference between remote viewing and controlled remote viewing. I was just learning that. I just knew that I wanted to take training. So, like a lot of people that are doing right now, they got on the internet, and when you don't know and you're seeing all these people saying they can train you, right? I was one of those. I just picked, one person. They said, oh, here's an at-home study course. Once you are done this course, you will be a remote viewer. I thought, great, this is wonderful. I can do it at home, right? So after about halfway through this at-home study course, I realized I don't think this is remote viewing. I know this is astral projection training, but I don't think that's remote viewing. So I went back to the fella and I said, I this is not a remote viewing course. This is an astral projection course. Oh, no. You will become a remote viewer if you learn how to do this. I said, I don't think so. I want my money back. Nope. You don't get your money back. And what I found later, talking to an awful lot of other people at the same time who were coming through their training, they ran into this same fella who he knew he was not providing a remote viewing course, but that's what he called it. That's what he called it. And he knew people like me who didn't understand. He knew he'd get our money. He lied to us and took our money. And so there's a lot of people out there nowadays who are doing the same thing, telling you that they're offering you remote viewing training. And you know what? If you really want to get into controlled remote viewing training, you go to the original unit members who are offering training courses. And you start there. You start there. Yeah.
Which aspect of CRV do you like better?
With respect to the type of work that I've done over all these years. So when I first started, I was a student and all I did was practice like a crazy woman, like all of us did, right? And then I got into facilitating courses in Canada. And then Lyn Buchanan became so busy with clients, wanting him to do client work for him, that he had to say no to so many of them because he was so busy with all of us students. So he turned to me and he said, I need a project manager. If you're interested in it, I will train you to be a CRV project manager, and then we will have other viewers come and work with us, and we will be able to start saying yes to some of these clients and do some client work. That's what we're here for. We learn all this to help clients, and I'm having to say no because I'm too busy. So let's change that. And so I did that for several years. Yeah.
What is the difference between a viewer and a project manager?
A project manager is the go-between. If a client comes and wants some work done, archaeology, police investigation, and they want a CRVer, a controlled remote viewer, to do session work for them, to find out where the murder weapon is, to find out the physical description of the person who committed a crime, to find the location of a missing person, for example. They can't go straight to the controlled remote viewer and ask them those questions, because a controlled remote viewer is trained to do their session work not knowing anything about the target.
So-called blind.
Blind target work.
Yeah.
You're taught all the way through your training, it's blind target work.
Mm.
So when a police officer comes and says, can you help us find a missing person? Okay, whoa. Now I'm not blind to the target anymore. I know there's a missing person and you're looking for a location. So what the police officers do is they go to a controlled remote viewing project manager. And they say to the project manager, we need this work done. And the project manager takes down all the information needed and turns around and comes to the viewer team and says to them, we need you to do a target, and the target is describe the location. The viewers don't know what this location is. They have no idea what the person who asked for it is. They are completely blind to the target. All they know is they have to give a description of a location. They have no idea where it is, what it involves. But the project manager is the go-between. After the viewers do their work and send all their session summaries into the project manager, a report is created from their work and sent to the police or sent to the client. And that's how the project manager represents the viewer work to the client.
Yep. And there are multiple viewers. It's not only one normally.
Yeah. Normally there's a team of viewers. Yeah.
Yep.
And the team is consisting of viewers who have, remember the natural strengths you have as a viewer. A project manager likes to have the team where there's natural strengths for this with this viewer and something else with this viewer and something else for this viewer, so that depending on what you get for questions from a client, you can say, oh, I know the viewer that's going to work really well with this, but you put the whole team on it. You put the whole team on the question to answer the question. But yes, you normally do work with several viewers at a time.
Yep. Yeah. You've been in this business for 20 years now, about 5 years after the declassement on the part of the CIA. Yeah. How would you describe the evolution of controlled remote viewing?
Well, the evolution of controlled remote viewing or the evolution of training, I'm going to touch on both. Controlled remote viewing was never provided. Controlled remote viewing training was never provided to the general public until the unit disbanded and the original unit members started training their own students. So, I mean, Lyn Buchanan, for example, he has students that number in the, what are we, up to 700 or 800 by now? And now that he's training using a online method, he's training far more students at once than he used to be able to using online technology. So I don't think it's so much that controlled remote viewing has changed. The same protocol is being taught by the unit members and people like me who were trained by the unit members. I teach the same way. But what I am seeing is people out there training what they call controlled remote viewing, and they've never been trained by any of these members of the unit. And they are calling their programs controlled remote viewing. So because on the internet you can put up a website and say anything these days, you have to be very careful in your research when you're looking for a trainer. The other thing is the training, I think, has evolved in ILA because now we're capable of using online technology. Before, when Lyn Buchanan, Paul Smith, and the others started their training, you had to go to them, and it had to be workshop style over a weekend. Yep. That's how all of us learned. You had to all go and gather in a place, and for a weekend or a week, you would learn remote viewing. Now, with technology the way it is, you can train, and I do, train students all over the planet using Zoom and Skype and WebEx and
Mm-hmm.
other online technology. So in that way, that it has evolved so that you can offer training in a different format, but it's the same training process. Yeah.
And what are the added values you offer in your training?
Well, when I returned to training 5 years ago, I didn't want to train workshop style. There's so much more understanding of controlled remote viewing at the basic level, at the intermediate level, at the advanced level that you could learn if you learned it over a span of time, so that you could incorporate and understand what you were doing and use it more effectively in your practice work. So I developed a 6-week course. And over those 6 weeks, I do one-on-one training. And I come onto Zoom like we're doing now, and I monitor the students as they do their session work. I watch them while they're writing out their session work, and I help them get better by giving them some strategies, some techniques, some troubleshooting tips. And we work on getting them really, really good so that by the time the 6 weeks is over, they're practicing on their own. They know exactly what they're looking for. They're doing their own post-session analysis of their session work. They're putting all of their session summaries up into Lyn Buchanan's database. They're in a really good place after 6 weeks. And I developed my course to be that way because I wish I had had training this way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fine. And where do people find you for the training?
For my training, they can go to my website. It's called crvtraining.ca. It has all the information on all the different levels of training that I provide. There's mentoring program that I've got there as well for people who just need someone to look at their session work and help them figure out a problem that they're having and come up with some solutions for them. There's also some testimonials on my website of other students who've taken my course, and they have their own experience that they like to portray to other students coming in. I also have a frequently asked question list. Very often, people who come to find remote viewing and controlled remote viewing have lots of questions. Is this like out-of-body experience? Is this like astral projection? I found that the questions were very similar that came to me and came to Lyn Buchanan when I was his course coordinator in Canada. So I had Lyn answer all of these questions, and I have those questions and answers on my website, so they'll get a lot of information. I also have a recommended reading list. Anybody who comes to me, I say to them, please read the books. Read The Psychic Warrior. Read the book that Lyn Buchanan wrote, The Seventh Sense, so you get an understanding of what the experience of being a remote viewer is about before you take training. That's really good advice, I think. But yep, they can find me at crvtraining.ca.
Great, Coleen. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome.
I hope to see you soon. And, well, bye, Coleen.
Bye for now.